Have you ever had that sinking feeling after sending a message, realizing too late that your words could be completely misinterpreted? Or perhaps you've experienced that moment of dread when something you said in confidence suddenly resurfaces in the most uncomfortable context possible. If so, you're not alone in this digital minefield we navigate daily. In today's hyper-connected world, our words travel farther and faster than ever before. They cross continents in milliseconds, yet somehow manage to stick around for what feels like eternity. That quick text, that heated email, that social media rant you posted at 2 a.m. They don't simply dissolve into the digital ether. They linger, waiting patiently, sometimes for years, before they make their unexpected return. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world, and if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our future videos. What's particularly unsettling is how our own words can become weapons against us, wielded not just by others with malicious intent, but sometimes by our very own hands. We craft these verbal boomerangs that circle back to strike us when we least expect it. The casual promise made months ago that you've forgotten about. The opinion shared in a different context that now seems inflammatory. The confidential information disclosed to someone you thought you could trust. Has this ever happened to you? That moment when you're confronted with something you said or wrote, and your first thought is, "That's not what I meant," or worse, "Did I really say that?" The digital breadcrumbs we leave behind form a permanent record that can be pieced together to create narratives we never intended. In professional settings, this can derail careers. In personal relationships, it can shatter trust. In public discourse, it can destroy reputations built over decades. Stay with me until the end of this video, because understanding this phenomenon is just the first step. What's even more important is learning how to navigate a world where everything is potentially on the record, where context can be stripped away in an instant, and where your words might be the very tools used to craft your undoing. The psychology behind this is fascinating and disturbing in equal measure. We speak and write in the emotional context of the moment, but our words are judged later, often in entirely different circumstances. What you're about to discover might surprise you. The subtle ways your casual communications create vulnerabilities you never considered, and how seemingly innocuous exchanges can transform into something far more consequential. The truth is, in our rush to connect, to express, to share, we often forget the permanence of our digital footprint. We forget that words, once released, take on a life of their own. Hit subscribe now to join a community of genuine communicators who value influence with integrity. Your mouth can betray you by revealing secrets, weaknesses, and handing enemies the tools they need. Niccolo Machiavelli emphasized controlling one's words to control destiny. What many don't realize is that the things we say casually often carry far more weight than we intend. Words, once released into the world, cannot be taken back. They leave impressions, create expectations, and sometimes open doors we'd rather keep closed. Consider how often someone has used your own words against you. Perhaps you shared a vulnerability with a colleague who later referenced it during a disagreement. Or maybe you revealed a strategic plan to someone who wasn't fully aligned with your interests. These moments of verbal indiscretion can shape the trajectory of relationships and opportunities in ways we rarely anticipate. The psychological dimension of this principle runs deeper than mere tactical advantage. When we speak too freely, we often dilute our personal power. There's a transformation that happens in the mind when everything becomes available to everyone. The mysterious aura that commands respect begins to fade. Leaders throughout history have understood this hidden truth. Those who speak sparingly but precisely tend to be taken more seriously. This isn't about becoming paranoid or antisocial. Rather, it's about developing the discernment to recognize which thoughts deserve expression and which are better kept within your mental sanctuary. The journey toward mastery of communication involves understanding that silence itself is a form of communication, often more powerful than words. I've personally witnessed the career trajectories of two equally talented individuals diverge dramatically based simply on how they managed their words. One shared every idea, frustration, and plan openly with anyone who would listen. The other carefully selected what information to share, with whom and when. The impact was undeniable. The second person advanced rapidly while the first remained stagnant, despite having superior technical skills. The reverence we hold for those who speak thoughtfully exists for good reason. When someone weighs their words carefully, we instinctively sense that their thoughts have undergone a filtering process, a refinement that signals intelligence and self-control. This perception alone can elevate your standing among peers, superiors, and subordinates. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring the practical applications of strategic silence. Because while understanding the principle is valuable, knowing how to implement it in daily interactions is where true power emerges. The most successful people I've studied have developed an almost intuitive sense of when to speak and when to observe, a skill that, once developed, becomes second nature. If you've ever experienced a situation where you immediately regretted sharing something personal or strategic, write in the comments, "I've learned this lesson." Fury reveals the truth. Anger turns your mouth into a confession booth. Being predictable in your responses to anger can be used against you. Think about it. When was the last time you felt that surge of heat in your chest, that tightness in your throat before words came pouring out that you later regretted? We've all been there. That moment when emotion overtakes logic and suddenly we're saying things we've kept hidden for months, even years. This pattern isn't just uncomfortable, it's a vulnerability that others can exploit. The most skilled manipulators understand this transformation process and deliberately push your buttons, creating the perfect storm for your emotional unraveling. They know that if they apply just enough pressure, your inner thoughts will spill out unfiltered. What's fascinating about this psychological dynamic is how universal it is across cultures and personalities. Even the most disciplined individuals have breaking points, specific triggers that bypass their usual self-control. The journey toward emotional intelligence isn't about never feeling angry. It's about recognizing the early signals before the emotional hijacking occurs. Behind the scenes of every angry outburst is a predictable sequence. The trigger, the emotional flooding, and then the revelation. Your body actually prepares you for this moment. Your heart rate increases, your breathing changes, your muscles tense. These physiological signs are trying to warn you of the impending confession booth moment, but most people miss them entirely. Subscribe for more insights on mastering authentic communication that aligns with your true intentions. The hidden truth here is that anger itself isn't the enemy. In fact, understanding your anger pattern is one of the most profound forms of self-knowledge you can develop. When you map your typical responses, you gain power over them. This awareness creates a crucial pause, a momentary space between stimulus and response where your freedom to choose lives. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining how this pattern forms in the first place and why some people seem naturally better at controlling these impulses than others. The neuroscience behind emotional regulation reveals something surprising about how our brains process threatening situations and why default responses become so deeply ingrained over time. Your predictable anger response didn't develop overnight. It's the product of thousands of emotional experiences starting from childhood that have created neural pathways in your brain. These pathways become like well-traveled roads, the path of least resistance during emotional moments. The good news is that neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to reorganize itself, means these patterns can be rewired with consistent practice and the right approach. If you've recognized yourself in any part of this discussion, write in the comments, "I'm taking back control." I'm curious how many of you have experienced this emotional pattern and are ready to break it. People don't celebrate your success. They study and reverse engineer it. This is the hidden truth about human nature that many of us learn too late. When you accomplish something significant, rarely will someone genuinely applaud your achievement without an ulterior motive. Instead, they're analyzing how they can extract your methods, connections, or insights for their own benefit. This isn't cynicism, it's merely understanding the landscape of human interaction. I've seen this pattern play out countless times in my own journey. People who appeared supportive were actually gathering intelligence, hoping to replicate my process without enduring the same challenges. They weren't interested in my growth. They wanted the blueprint for their own advancement. This realization was transformative for me, not because it made me distrustful, but because it helped me become more discerning about who I share my victories and strategies with. This brings me to another revelation that connects deeply with this concept: alcohol and lowered inhibitions. When you're in social settings where drinks are flowing, you become far more vulnerable than you realize. Those 3 glasses of wine don't just make you more relaxed. They create the perfect conditions for you to become an unwitting intelligence asset. Think about it. After a few drinks, the boundaries between private and public information blur. You might share details about your business strategy, mention a confidential opportunity, or reveal personal information that could be leveraged against you later. The person asking seemingly innocent questions about your recent success might be systematically extracting valuable intel while you're in a chemically altered state. I'm not suggesting everyone has malicious intentions, but in competitive environments, whether business, career advancement, or even social climbing, information is currency. And alcohol is often the exchange mechanism that facilitates unintended transfers of this currency. This dynamic is particularly dangerous for individuals in positions with access to sensitive information. Historical intelligence agencies understood this principle perfectly, using social situations with alcohol as prime recruitment and information-gathering opportunities. The modern equivalent might be more subtle: a competitor buying rounds at an industry conference, a colleague suggesting drinks after a major project milestone, or even a casual acquaintance who always seems curious about your methods when you're a few drinks in. The psychology behind this is fascinating. Alcohol specifically impairs the brain's prefrontal cortex, which governs decision-making and discretion. Meanwhile, it amplifies our desire for social connection and approval. This combination creates the perfect storm for information extraction. You're literally neurologically primed to overshare while your ability to assess the consequences is compromised. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because understanding these hidden dynamics changes how you navigate both professional and personal relationships. Protecting your intellectual and strategic assets doesn't mean becoming paranoid, but rather developing a heightened awareness about when and where you share your most valuable insights. If you've ever experienced this phenomenon, realizing someone was studying your success rather than celebrating it, write "vigilant mindset" in the comments below. The desperation born from stress often unveils our deepest vulnerabilities. When we're pushed to our limits, we tend to confess our perceived inadequacies and failures, not just to others, but to ourselves. It's a psychological defense mechanism, almost like our mind's way of releasing pressure before we completely break down. But this natural response also creates a dangerous opening for those with manipulative intentions. Think about it. When you're emotionally drained, your guard naturally lowers. This is precisely when skilled manipulators strike. They recognize this state of vulnerability and exploit it masterfully, creating an atmosphere where you feel compelled to share your weaknesses. It's not just about sympathy, it's about the calculated extraction of valuable information that can later be used against you. The psychology behind this manipulation is fascinating yet deeply concerning. These individuals are experts at reading emotional cues, understanding when you've reached your breaking point. They position themselves as safe harbors in your storm, offering what appears to be unconditional support. But behind that supportive facade lies a strategic mind, cataloging each revelation for future leverage. I've witnessed this transformation firsthand in professional settings. A colleague who seemed genuinely concerned about someone's work, stress gradually began using the information shared in confidence to undermine their position. The revelations shared during moments of vulnerability became ammunition in office politics. The journey from confidant to manipulator can be so subtle that most don't recognize it until they're already ensnared. What makes this particularly effective is our inherent desire for emotional connection during difficult times. We naturally seek understanding and validation when we're struggling. This creates the perfect storm for manipulative tactics to flourish. The hidden truth is that these manipulators aren't offering genuine support. They're engaging in a sophisticated form of information gathering. But understanding this pattern gives you power. By recognizing the signs of this manipulation, you can protect yourself while still finding healthy outlets for stress. Learning to distinguish between genuine empathy and calculated sympathy becomes critical in preserving your emotional and professional boundaries. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining the specific tactics these manipulators employ and how they create seemingly safe spaces designed to extract your most valuable thoughts and feelings. Drop "I see through this now" in the comments if you've ever recognized this pattern in your own life experiences. Gossip appears harmless on the surface, just a casual exchange of information about absent colleagues. But in reality, it creates an undercurrent of mistrust that can poison entire workplace cultures. When you engage in gossip, you're signaling to others that confidentiality means little to you. Think about it. If you're willing to talk about John from accounting behind his back, your colleagues will naturally wonder what you say about them when they're not around. This betrayal of trust extends beyond the immediate damage to relationships. It reveals a deeper pattern about your character that shrewd managers and leaders instantly recognize. Those who rise to positions of influence understand that information is currency in the professional world, and how you handle it speaks volumes about your reliability. Now, I want to go even deeper into authority testing, a fascinating psychological dynamic that plays out in virtually every workplace. When a superior criticizes your work or challenges you in front of others, they're often conducting an unspoken assessment. They're watching closely. Will you become defensive? Will you crumble under pressure, or will you maintain your composure and respond professionally? These moments of tension reveal your true professional mindset. The path to advancement often runs directly through these uncomfortable interactions. Those who can accept criticism gracefully, integrate feedback effectively, and maintain their dignity under pressure demonstrate a rare form of emotional intelligence that separates leaders from followers. What's particularly revealing about these tests is that they expose the gap between who we think we are and how we actually behave when challenged. Many people consider themselves good under pressure until they face real scrutiny from someone with authority over their career. The subsequent reaction, whether composed or chaotic, becomes a defining moment in their professional journey. Behind the scenes, these responses become part of your unwritten professional reputation. Leaders discuss how team members handle feedback, noting who grows from criticism and who becomes combative. This hidden evaluation system operates continuously, informing decisions about who receives opportunities for advancement long before any formal review process begins. The transformation comes when you recognize these interactions for what they are: opportunities to demonstrate your professional maturity rather than threats to your ego. By reframing criticism as valuable intelligence rather than personal attacks, you position yourself for exponential growth while others remain stuck in defensive patterns. If this perspective has shifted your thinking about workplace dynamics, write "Seeing the Invisible Game" in the comments. Now, let me share how these subtle workplace assessments connect to something even more fundamental. When you're driven to expose someone else's secrets out of revenge, there's something crucial most people miss. That revelation often damages your reputation far more than theirs. Think about it. When someone shares private information that was clearly told in confidence, others watching don't focus on the content of the secret nearly as much as they notice the person who broke that trust. It creates this paradoxical effect where your attempt to harm someone else's image actually transforms how people see you. The truth is, revenge-based exposure sends a powerful message to everyone in your circle. This person can't be trusted with sensitive information. It's one of those hidden social dynamics that operates beneath the surface of our interactions. Even people who seem entertained by the gossip are simultaneously making mental notes never to share anything important with you. This social consequence often has more lasting impact than whatever momentary satisfaction you might feel. I've observed this journey play out countless times. Someone feels wronged, shares private information in retaliation, and then gradually notices how others become more guarded around them. The revelation they intended as a weapon becomes a boomerang that strikes back at their own credibility. Similarly fascinating is how overcompensation works against us. When someone lacks confidence in their abilities, they often resort to verbal overcompensation, excessive explaining, name-dropping, or using unnecessarily complex language. This defensive mechanism, intended to mask inadequacy, actually highlights it. It's like drawing a circle around the very thing you're trying to hide. Behind the scenes of our conversations, others are constantly making assessments based not just on what we say, but how we say it. That desperate energy that accompanies overcompensation has a distinct feel that most people can intuitively sense. The irony is that acknowledging a limitation often creates more credibility than trying to cover it up with verbal gymnastics. These psychological blind spots represent critical decision points in how we manage our social image. The mindset shift comes when we recognize that true strength isn't found in exposing others or pretending expertise, but in maintaining integrity and authentic self-awareness. Now, I want to go even deeper into this phenomenon by exploring how these behaviors create ripple effects through our professional and personal relationships that many never consciously recognize. If you've ever caught yourself about to share something in confidence and then hesitated because you weren't sure it would stay, private drop trust matters in the comments. Empty promises expose desperation and damage credibility when unfulfilled. Every conversation can be a minefield, where one wrong word can ruin your position. This psychological reality is something most negotiation books gloss over. The power dynamics that silently govern every high-stakes interaction. When someone makes promises they can't keep, they're not just disappointing you. They're revealing their weakened position. The truly powerful never need to oversell. They let reality speak for itself. I've witnessed this transformation firsthand with clients who once believed that promising the moon would get them what they wanted, only to discover that restraint communicates far more strength. What's fascinating is how this principle appears throughout history's most pivotal negotiations. Behind closed doors, world leaders who maintained measured communication consistently secured better outcomes than those who resorted to grandiose statements. This isn't coincidence, it's human psychology at work. Consider the unspoken impact of your word choice. Every term you use creates ripples in the listener's mind. The difference between saying, "I think we can do that," versus "I guarantee we can do that," might seem subtle, but the latter places you in a vulnerable position if circumstances change. The journey toward mastering negotiation requires this level of verbal precision. Many of us have been culturally conditioned to overpromise. It's a protective mechanism rooted in our fear of rejection, but this hidden truth undermines our negotiating power. The more desperately we try to convince others, the more they sense weakness. True negotiation mastery comes from operating from a position of calm confidence, where your words and reality remain perfectly aligned. The revelation that often transforms my client's approach is learning that negotiation isn't about what happens at the table, it's about the internal mindset you bring to that table. Are you coming from a place of lack, believing you must promise everything to get anything? Or are you approaching from a position of strength, knowing your worth and communicating it clearly without overextension? Now, I want to go even deeper into the psychological triggers that determine negotiation outcomes. This goes beyond standard tactics and into the realm of human behavior patterns that few negotiators ever consciously recognize. Understanding these patterns provides an almost unfair advantage when properly applied. If any of these principles have already given you a new perspective on your communication style, type "words matter" in the comments below. Silence truly holds a mastery that most people overlook. Think about those moments when you're in a negotiation or important conversation. Have you noticed how uncomfortable people become during periods of silence? This discomfort reveals a fascinating aspect of human psychology that the true power players understand instinctively. When you deliberately pause and create space, something remarkable happens. The other person typically rushes to fill that void, often revealing information they never intended to share. I've witnessed this transformation countless times in professional settings. The person who speaks less almost always gains the upper hand because they're gathering intelligence while giving away nothing. Consider historical figures who mastered this art. Napoleon was known to delay his responses to letters for days, not because he was too busy, but because he understood the psychological advantage of making others wait. This deliberate withholding created an imbalance of power that consistently worked in his favor. The journey toward effective communication often requires unlearning our natural tendencies. We're conditioned to believe that constant expression demonstrates confidence, but behind the scenes of real power plays, restraint is the true currency. Those who carefully measure their words command attention when they do speak. When you do break your silence, the impact should be purposeful. Think of your words as rare commodities. The scarcer they are, the more valuable they become. This doesn't mean being cold or distant, but rather understanding the economics of communication. Every word you speak is an investment that should yield returns in influence. I've discovered that precision in language creates an almost magnetic effect. Instead of diluting your message with unnecessary explanations or qualifiers, try distilling your thoughts to their essence. Notice how people lean in when you speak with conviction and brevity. There's hidden truth in the observation that those who over-explain are often secretly seeking approval, The reverence given to those who speak less exists across cultures and throughout history. When someone carefully chooses when to contribute, others naturally assign more weight to their words. This isn't manipulative. It's simply understanding the innate human tendency to value what is scarce. Now, I want to go even deeper into specific techniques that make this approach particularly effective in different contexts. Because mastering the rhythms of dialogue, knowing precisely when to remain silent and when to speak, creates a presence that's impossible to ignore. If this resonates with your own experiences in communication, write "power in silence" in the comments below. Careless conversation ends with enemies using your words against you. It happens subtly. You're relaxing at dinner, sharing thoughts with someone you barely know, revealing personal struggles or opinions without thinking twice. Those casual words seem to evaporate into the air, but they don't. They're being collected, stored, and sometimes weaponized against you when you least expect it. This isn't paranoia. It's the hidden reality of human interaction. I've witnessed countless transformations in relationships where yesterday's confidant becomes today's opponent, armed with intimate knowledge you freely provided. The most dangerous revelations aren't always the obvious secrets. They're the small admissions, the fleeting judgments, the unfiltered thoughts that paint a picture of your vulnerabilities. Consider this: every conversation is an exchange of power. When you speak carelessly, you're handing over leverage without receiving anything in return. This isn't just about major betrayals. It's about the slow erosion of your position in relationships, career negotiations, and social dynamics. The discipline of thoughtful speech isn't about becoming cold or calculating. Rather, it's about developing an awareness of the potential impact of your words. Those who master this art understand that genuine connection doesn't require complete transparency in all circumstances. They recognize the difference between authentic sharing and reckless disclosure. Behind the scenes of every successful person's journey is a carefully crafted approach to communication. They've learned, often through painful experiences, that words once spoken cannot be unheard. They understand the profound truth that language shapes reality, not just reflects it. Think about the most respected people in your life. Notice how they listen more than they speak. Observe how they consider their responses rather than blurting out whatever comes to mind. This isn't coincidence. It's mastery. They're not just avoiding problems. They're actively creating the conditions for their success through disciplined communication. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining specific situations where this principle becomes particularly crucial. The workplace, for instance, is a battlefield where careless words can derail careers. Social gatherings become strategy sessions for the disciplined communicator. Even intimate relationships benefit from thoughtful speech that builds rather than undermines trust. The journey toward communication mastery isn't about perfection, it's about progression. Each conversation becomes an opportunity to practice discernment, to weigh the value of what you're about to share against the potential consequences of sharing it. This mindset shift alone can dramatically alter your life's trajectory. If you're nodding along with this wisdom, type "words have power" in the comments section. Now let's explore how to develop this critical skill in practical, everyday situations. Even successful individuals have fallen because of careless words. We've all witnessed how a single, thoughtless comment can undo years of hard work and reputation building. This isn't just about public figures, it's a universal truth that affects each of us in our daily interactions. The tongue, weighing just a few ounces, carries the power to build empires or burn bridges in seconds. I've observed this transformation firsthand in professional settings, watching colleagues who spoke impulsively during meetings gradually lose the trust of their peers. The journey from respected team member to outsider often begins with a single, unguarded moment. What makes this reality so challenging is that our words flow from our deepest beliefs and attitudes. They're not random, they're revelations of our inner landscape. That's why maintaining control over one's mouth requires more than surface-level filtering. It demands a profound inner alignment. Think about the hidden truths behind how we speak. Our words create ripples that continue long after we've forgotten what we said. A critical comment might seem insignificant to us, but it could be replaying in someone else's mind months later. This impact asymmetry is what makes communication such a delicate art. The most successful communicators I've studied share one common trait. They've developed the discipline of intentional speech. They understand the weight of words and recognize that everything they say is creating their future reality. This mindset shift from seeing speech as casual to treating it as consequential marks the dividing line between those who master their circumstances and those who remain at their mercy. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining how our relationships become microcosms of our communication patterns. The quality of our connections directly reflects our ability to harness the power of our words. When we speak with awareness, we create spaces where trust can flourish. Conversely, when we let our tongues run loose, we plant seeds of doubt that may take years to uproot. The mastery of speech isn't about perfectionism, it's about progression. Even those who seem naturally eloquent have struggled with impulsive words. The difference is they've committed to the practice of pausing before speaking, considering not just what is true, but what is helpful, necessary, and kind. This awareness becomes particularly crucial during moments of emotion, anger, excitement, or exhaustion. When our verbal filters tend to weaken, these vulnerable times reveal our true communication discipline and show us where we still need growth. If what I'm sharing resonates with your own experiences, write "guarding my words" in the comments. I'd love to hear how this perspective aligns with your journey. Wisdom lies in recognizing psychological traps that turn your mouth into an executioner. The journey toward verbal mastery isn't just about choosing better words, it's about fundamentally transforming how we process thoughts before they become speech. When we speak only to be right, we create invisible barriers between ourselves and others. Think about those heated arguments where you felt your blood pressure rising, your words becoming sharper and faster. In those moments, you weren't communicating, you were performing in a verbal gladiator arena with winning as the only acceptable outcome. The hidden truth is that our brains are wired for self-preservation, not necessarily for connection. This biological reality creates a fascinating paradox. The very organ that enables communication often sabotages it through ego protection mechanisms. When someone challenges our viewpoint, our neural pathways treat it similarly to physical danger, triggering defensive responses that prioritize winning over understanding. This revelation transformed my own communication journey. I noticed how often my conversations became battlegrounds where listening was merely waiting for my turn to speak. The impact was profound, relationships strained, opportunities missed, and genuine connections replaced by superficial victories. Behind the scenes of every argument I won, I was actually losing something more valuable. Now, I want to go even deeper into this mindset shift. Consider the difference between speaking to contribute versus speaking to dominate. When you speak to contribute, you're adding another piece to a collaborative puzzle. Your words become building blocks rather than wrecking balls. This approach requires a fundamental decision to value the conversation's outcome over your ego's temporary satisfaction. The transformation begins with a pause, that precious moment between thought and speech where wisdom can enter. This pause isn't empty, it's filled with crucial questions. Will these words build or destroy? Am I speaking to understand or to overpower? What's my true intention here? These milliseconds of reflection can completely redirect your communication path. Interestingly, the strongest communicators aren't those with the most forceful arguments, but those with the most thoughtful questions. Questions signal genuine interest, create space for others, and allow for exploration rather than confrontation. This subtle shift changes everything. Your conversations become discoveries rather than debates. Remember that communication is energy exchange. Every word carries emotional weight, creating either bridges or barriers. This understanding places tremendous responsibility on our speech. We're literally shaping reality with each sentence. The realization that words create worlds can fundamentally change how you approach every interaction. If you've ever found yourself trapped in the cycle of speaking to win rather than to understand, write in the comments, "I'm breaking free from verbal combat." This acknowledgement is the first step toward a more intentional communication approach. Rage can become others' evidence against you, revealing the true nature of your character in ways that words alone never could. In moments of fury, masks fall away, and your inner self is laid bare for all to witness. This revelation isn't always immediate. Sometimes it's the echo of your outburst that reverberates through relationships, creating lasting impressions that become nearly impossible to erase. Think about the last time someone's rage showed you exactly who they were. Perhaps it was a boss who couldn't contain their frustration, a friend whose veneer cracked under pressure, or even a stranger whose public meltdown revealed vulnerabilities they never intended to share. These moments become evidence, filed away in the minds of observers, ready to be referenced when your character comes into question. The journey toward power requires emotional discipline. Those who master themselves first gain the privilege of influencing others. Napoleon Bonaparte once noted that the true conquest isn't of lands, but of one's impulses, particularly anger, which he considered the most dangerous emotion for a leader to display unchecked. Now, consider the transformation that occurs with success. There's a peculiar intoxication that accompanies achievement, a subtle poison that can lead even the most disciplined minds to loosen their guards. Success creates a dangerous illusion of invulnerability, whispering that the rules no longer apply to you. In this state of intoxication, strategic secrets slip out almost involuntarily. I've witnessed countless rising stars sabotage their own trajectories by revealing their playbooks prematurely. The executive who boasts about their negotiation tactics at a networking event. The entrepreneur who details their market strategy on a podcast before securing their position. The artist who reveals their creative process before establishing their uniqueness in the marketplace. These revelations become weapons in competitors' hands, undermining the very dominance that prompted the disclosure. This paradox of success contains one of life's hidden truths. The moment you feel secure enough to reveal your methods is often the very moment you should guard them most fiercely. The greatest masters in any field understand that longevity requires selective transparency. They know the difference between sharing wisdom and surrendering advantage. The real power lies in calculated revelation, knowing exactly what to share, when to share it, and with whom. This discernment separates those who experience fleeting success from those who build lasting empires. It's not about deception, but rather strategic disclosure that preserves your competitive edge while still allowing for authentic connection. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining how these principles manifest in different contexts and how you can apply them to protect your own path to success and influence. If this resonates with your own experiences, write in the comments. I've seen this pattern unfold. It's fascinating how alcohol magnifies our impulse for disclosure, isn't it? Those late-night revelations that feel so right in the moment become tomorrow's source of anxiety. What makes this phenomenon particularly dangerous is how our brains process alcohol. It temporarily hijacks our prefrontal cortex, the very region responsible for decision-making and impulse control. This neurological transformation explains why so many of us wake up the morning after a social gathering with that sinking feeling of information regret. We've all been there, that moment when memories flood back and you realize you shared intimate details about your marriage, financial struggles, or career insecurities with people who simply didn't need that level of access to your inner world. But there's a deeper truth here about human vulnerability. Our desire for connection often overrides our protective instincts, especially when our normal filters are compromised. The journey from casual conversation to revealing our hidden struggles follows a predictable path that most of us fail to recognize until it's too late. What's particularly revealing is how differently people respond to these moments of unexpected disclosure. Some recipients of your confidences will genuinely honor your trust, while others, and this is the hidden truth we often miss, will file away your vulnerabilities like ammunition for future use. That colleague who seems so understanding about your management insecurities might reference them subtly in your next disagreement. The acquaintance who heard about your marital troubles might spread that information through social circles you haven't even considered. And it's not just alcohol that triggers these revelations. High-pressure situations create similar impulses to unburden ourselves. Think about job interviews where candidates desperately want to appear authentic, so they volunteer weaknesses that weren't even being probed. Or negotiations where anxiety leads people to preemptively address objections that weren't on the table, revealing their deepest insecurities. The psychology behind this pattern reflects our innate desire for authenticity colliding with our equally powerful need for self-preservation. This internal conflict manifests in these moments of unguarded sharing, creating a vulnerability landscape that savvy individuals, especially those with competitive or malicious intent, can exploit with remarkable precision. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring the structured approach to protecting yourself from these moments of vulnerability without sacrificing genuine connection, because there's a thoughtful middle path that allows for authentic relationships while maintaining proper boundaries around your most sensitive information. If you've ever experienced that morning after regret of sharing too much, write in the comments, "My lips were too loose," and know you're not alone in this very human experience. This hidden power dynamic is what truly separates influential people from the rest. When you willingly share gossip, you're not just passing along information, you're actually trading your power for a moment of social validation. That momentary connection feels good, but the cost is steep. Every time you reveal something that wasn't yours to share, you're signaling to others that you can't be trusted with valuable information. Think about the most respected people in your life. Do they constantly share what others have told them in confidence? Rarely. Their discretion is a cornerstone of their influence. They understand the transformative power of being a vault rather than a megaphone. The journey toward becoming someone who accumulates rather than dissipates power requires a fundamental shift in how we approach conversations. Instead of seeking to impress others with what you know, focus on creating a safe space where people feel comfortable revealing themselves. This creates a fascinating paradox. The less you reveal about others, the more they'll reveal to you. I've witnessed this revelation firsthand in professional settings. There's always that one person everyone gravitates toward when they need to discuss sensitive matters. They aren't necessarily the most outgoing or entertaining, they're simply known for their discretion. Their silence on certain matters speaks volumes about their character. What's particularly interesting about this dynamic is how it operates beneath conscious awareness. Most people don't explicitly think, I'm going to tell this person my secret, because they never share gossip. The trust builds organically through consistent behavior over time. Your reputation for discretion becomes a powerful, invisible asset. The impact of positioning yourself as a keeper of secrets rather than a distributor extends far beyond personal relationships. In business negotiations, politics, and leadership positions, those who can maintain confidentiality gain access to information others simply don't have. This information asymmetry becomes a tremendous advantage, allowing for more informed decisions and strategic positioning. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining how the most influential people throughout history have mastered this principle, often turning it into an art form. The patterns become unmistakable when you study them closely. If this perspective on gossip and power has made you rethink some of your own communication habits, write "Vault Mindset" in the comments. I'm curious to hear from those of you who recognize this pattern playing out in your own social circles. Failing to respond strategically to authority invites further challenges to your power. When someone questions or undermines your position, your response reveals volumes about your actual standing. This isn't about ego, it's about understanding the delicate balance of power. Dynamics that exist in every relationship and institution. Think about it. When authority figures react disproportionately to challenges, either with excessive force or noticeable weakness, they inadvertently expose vulnerabilities that invite further testing. The art lies in measured responses that demonstrate strength without desperation. This principle applies whether you're managing a small team or navigating complex organizational hierarchies. I've observed countless transformation journeys where individuals either mastered this balance or failed spectacularly. Those who respond with calculated precision, neither overreacting nor appearing indifferent, tend to solidify their influence over time. It's a sophisticated dance that requires emotional intelligence and strategic thinking in equal measure. The hidden truth behind effective authority is that it rarely announces itself loudly. True power often speaks through the ability to remain composed when others would falter. This composure becomes a signal that resonates throughout your entire sphere of influence. Equally damaging is the impulsive revelation of secrets after betrayal. While the urge for revenge is understandably human, the consequences extend far beyond the immediate satisfaction. When you disclose confidential information out of spite, you're not just hurting your target, you're broadcasting to everyone in your circle that you cannot be trusted with sensitive information. The ripple effects of such revelations transform your reputation in ways difficult to repair. People begin to question whether their vulnerabilities are safe with you, regardless of your current relationship status. The fundamental currency of influence, trust, becomes permanently devalued. This principle applies universally, from personal relationships to professional networks. I've witnessed brilliant careers stall because individuals couldn't resist the momentary satisfaction of exposing someone who wronged them. The immediate victory inevitably transforms into a long-term defeat. Now, I want to go even deeper into this counterintuitive reality. Sometimes, maintaining silence after betrayal can become your most powerful statement. There's a profound strength in demonstrating that your principles remain intact even when others have abandoned theirs. This consistent integrity creates a compelling narrative that speaks volumes about your character without saying a word. If you've ever experienced this tension between wanting revenge and choosing restraint, write "wisdom over impulse" in the comments. I'm curious how many of you have faced this challenging crossroad. Confidence without substance is the ultimate illusion in business. When someone overloads their speech with fancy jargon or makes grandiose claims about what they can deliver, they're often revealing the exact weakness they're trying to hide. It's like wearing an expensive suit with holes in the pockets. Impressive at first glance, but ultimately revealing a fundamental flaw. What's truly fascinating is the psychology behind these empty promises. When someone consistently commits to deadlines they can't meet or capabilities they don't possess, they're making a profound choice. They're prioritizing the momentary relief of your approval over the lasting value of their reputation. This short-term thinking creates a dangerous cycle. Each unfulfilled promise erodes trust until there's nothing left but a hollow shell of credibility. I've witnessed this transformation firsthand during my journey as a business consultant. One client came to me after partnering with a vendor who spoke with supreme confidence, using industry buzzwords and making bold commitments about delivery timelines. The initial impression was powerful. My client felt they'd found the perfect solution. But week after week, those promises evaporated and the excuses started piling up. Behind the scenes, what was happening was revelatory. This vendor wasn't deliberately deceptive. They genuinely believed they could fulfill their promises when making them. This cognitive bias, called the planning fallacy, causes people to underestimate the time needed to complete future tasks, despite knowing past similar tasks took longer than planned. The hidden truth is that genuine competence often speaks differently. It acknowledges limitations, sets realistic expectations, and delivers consistently rather than spectacularly. Real expertise has nothing to prove. It simply manifests in results. When you're evaluating potential partners, suppliers, or even employees, listen beyond their words. Notice how they handle questions about limitations. Pay attention to whether they ask probing questions or simply agree to everything you request. The most reliable professionals will occasionally say no or "I need to investigate that further," rather than automatically saying yes to win your business. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining the subtle signals that reveal true competence versus empty confidence. These indicators appear in the first few interactions if you know exactly what to watch for. If you've ever experienced someone who talks big but delivers small, write in the comments, "Actions speak louder than words." I'm curious how many of you have encountered this fundamental business truth. Words can either fortify your position or weaken it, depending on strategic use. Only those who control their minds, before speaking, truly dominate life's game. This mental discipline isn't talked about enough in our society, obsessed with quick reactions and hot takes. Think about it. Have you noticed how certain people naturally command respect in any room? It's rarely about their title or appearance. Their power lies in their ability to speak with intention and precision. They understand the hidden architecture of influence that words create. I discovered this transformation in my own journey. Years ago, I would impulsively respond to challenging situations, often saying things I later regretted. The shift happened when I realized that the space between stimulus and response, that golden pause, is where our true power resides. This isn't just about communication techniques. It's about a fundamental mindset shift that ripples through every aspect of your life. When you master your words, you begin mastering your reality. Consider the subtle difference between saying, "I'll try to get this done," versus, "I will complete this by Friday." The energy shift is palpable. One creates wiggle room for failure, the other establishes a commitment. These micro-decisions in our language patterns shape how others perceive our reliability and competence. The revelation that changed everything for me was understanding that words aren't just descriptive, they're creative. They don't just describe your reality, they help create it. This principle operates behind the scenes of every successful negotiation, every meaningful relationship, and every personal breakthrough. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining how this principle applies in high-stakes situations. When tension rises, most people fall back on emotional language patterns that undermine their position. But there's a particular approach that changes the entire dynamic, allowing you to maintain control even when everything around you seems chaotic. This approach isn't about manipulation or playing games. It's about aligning your authentic self with your highest intentions and allowing your words to flow from that centered place. The impact is immediate and often surprising to those who witness it. What's fascinating is how this capacity creates a ripple effect in your environment. Not only do you become more effective, but you unconsciously give permission to others to elevate their communication as well. This is how real cultural change happens, one conversation at a time. If you're noticing these patterns in your own life or in people around you, write mindful speech in the comments. I'd love to know who else is observing how language shapes our experiences and relationships. The most successful people are not talkative, they are strategically communicative. Your words can build an empire or provide tools for its destruction. This principle becomes crystal clear when we observe how billionaires and industry leaders manage their communication. They're not constantly filling the air with words or dominating every conversation. Instead, they're calculating the impact of each statement before it leaves their lips. This measured approach isn't about being antisocial. It's about understanding the true power words carry in the professional arena. Think about Warren Buffett, who, despite his immense influence, is known for his careful, thoughtful communication style. Or consider how Elon Musk's single tweet can move markets and shape perceptions. These aren't accidents. They represent a profound understanding of communication as currency. I've witnessed this transformation in my own journey. Early in my career, I felt compelled to demonstrate my knowledge by speaking extensively in meetings. The revelation came during a pivotal project when my mentor pulled me aside and delivered what became a life-changing insight. Your ideas have merit, but you're diluting their impact with excess words. This hidden truth about communication carries tremendous weight in negotiations especially. Those who master strategic silence create valuable information vacuums that others feel compelled to fill, often revealing crucial details in the process. It's like a chess match where patience determines who controls the board. The mindset shift required here isn't about becoming withdrawn, it's about developing intentionality. Every word you speak should serve a purpose, advance your position, or strengthen a relationship. When you adopt this framework, you'll notice how others begin responding to you differently, with more attention and seriousness. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining the psychological components at play. Our brains are wired to seek validation through expression, which explains the common urge to fill silence. However, the most influential communicators have rewired this instinct, understanding that measured restraint often generates more respect than verbose contributions. This doesn't mean becoming robotic or calculated in personal relationships. The beauty of strategic communication is that it allows for authenticity while eliminating the clutter that diminishes your message. It's about precision rather than restriction, knowing exactly what to say and when to say it for maximum impact. Behind every great fortune or significant achievement lies this often overlooked skill. While technical expertise and vision are frequently discussed as drivers of success, the disciplined wielding of words represents the execution tool that brings those elements to life in the real world. If any of this resonates with your experiences or observations, write strategic silence in the comments. I'd love to know how many of you have noticed this pattern among the truly successful people in your own circles. The art of emotional manipulation through words isn't just about what you say. It's about understanding the psychological undercurrents that flow beneath every conversation. When we examine Machiavelli's approach to communication, We're really exploring the architecture of influence itself. He understood something profound. Words create reality, and those who master their speech effectively shape the worlds of those around them. Consider how often your words have unintentionally revealed your vulnerabilities or exposed your true intentions to those who were paying attention. This happens because most people operate on verbal autopilot, responding instinctively rather than strategically. The transformation begins when you recognize that each conversation is a chess match, not a casual exchange. I've observed countless interactions where power silently shifted based on seemingly insignificant verbal cues. Someone apologizing unnecessarily, oversharing personal struggles, or seeking excessive validation. These create power imbalances that accumulate over time. The revelation here isn't that manipulation exists, but that it's happening in every conversation, whether you're conscious of it or not. The hidden truth most never grasp is that verbal discipline isn't about being calculating or cold. It's about aligning your communication with your deeper intentions. When you speak without this alignment, you create fractures in how others perceive your authority and credibility. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining specific verbal patterns that undermine your position. The journey toward mastering your speech requires recognizing these patterns first. For instance, habitually using qualifiers like "I think," "maybe," or "sort of" subtly communicates uncertainty. Similarly, explaining your decisions before they're questioned signals a lack of confidence in your judgment. What's fascinating about this aspect of human behavior is how predictably it functions across cultures and contexts. The person who controls their speech controls the narrative, and the person who controls the narrative ultimately shapes how others respond to them. This isn't manipulation in the negative sense. It's understanding the mechanics of human interaction. Behind the scenes of every successful negotiation, leadership position, or even romantic relationship lies this fundamental understanding of verbal power dynamics. The impact of mastering this skill extends far beyond isolated conversations. It reshapes your entire social reality. Consider moments when you felt inexplicably drawn to someone's perspective or found yourself agreeing with someone against your better judgment. The mechanics of verbal influence were likely at play, operating below your conscious awareness. The difference between those who achieve their aims and those who don't often comes down to this invisible skill. If anything I've shared resonates with your experiences, type "verbal awakening" in the comments section. I'm curious how many of you have noticed these patterns playing out in your own interactions. If you've stayed with me this far, you're clearly someone who values genuine connection and influence over manipulation. That's important because true verbal mastery isn't about controlling others. It's about authentic expression that aligns with your deepest intentions. I hope these insights have given you something valuable to reflect on in your daily conversations. The awareness alone can transform how you communicate and how others respond to you. If this exploration into the psychology of speech has resonated with you, consider subscribing to continue our journey into human behavior and personal development. I create content specifically for those who want to navigate social dynamics with both effectiveness and integrity. If you made it all the way through, type "words create worlds" in the comments. I'd love to know who's reflecting on these ideas alongside me. Leave a like if you found value here today. Your engagement helps these insights reach others who might benefit from them. There's a video right here that explores how to recognize when these techniques are being used on you. Click and continue with me over there to complete the picture and protect yourself from unwanted influence.